¿Qué pasó, amigos? My name's Rory Clark, and I'll be going over my experience with the Nexdome. I did this presentation on the Astro Imaging channel, but the quality of the show wasn't that great because my voice was echoing for about the first 10 minutes, and some of the things I was presenting on you weren't really able to see because the software that we used was blocking the top of my presentation. So I thought I'd go over this presentation again. So I'll be talking about generally why I chose the Nexdome, not necessarily why you should choose the Nexdome. I'll briefly go over some planning and setup, some of the complications I faced putting this together. This is the main reason I wanted to present, is save you guys some headache putting this dome together. I'm sure though, by the time you see this video, a lot of things will be changed. For example, I have the old shutter without the ball bearings. They've already replaced the shutter, which was a horrible design. I'm glad they replaced it, but I think a lot of this will apply to you though, but it may be outdated. Who knows? But uh, hopefully you'll learn something that'll save you a headache by watching this video. I'll just briefly go over the operation as well, how I use software, what you can anticipate as far as syncing your dome to your scope. I'll go over some tools I keep in the interior, and then this section was mainly intended for the Astro Imaging channel questions. But if you have any questions, type them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you. A little bit about me. As I said earlier, my name's Rory. I've lived in Orange County, California my whole life. Got my first telescope about 6 years ago. So Ryan 12-inch Dobsonian. As you can see, I've made quite a few modifications to that telescope since. Shortly after getting my first observing rig, I then purchased my first imaging rig, which was a William Optics 71 with a Astrophysics Mach 1. That was last year. They had those Astrophysics Mach 1 mounts. I also am shooting with a one-shot color cam on an Attic 4120 with an off-axis guider. And this is kind of the area just adjacent to my dome where I used to set up, and I'd have to haul this gear out every time I wanted to go set up. So having a observatory is pretty nice to not have to bring all your stuff out there all the time. I am a member of Riverside Astronomical Society and Orange County Astronomers. Shortly after getting into astrophotography, I started a blog, celestialoptics.com. It's just a very simple, fun blog. It's nothing major. It helps me to kind of type up stuff I learn to get a more in-depth understanding of the subjects and whatnot. So it's just a hobby blog site for now. Also on social, I'm at Rory A. Clark. So getting to why I chose the Nexdome, the first thing for me, hands down, was hauling a bunch of weight up and down stairs every time I wanted to go haul, or every time I wanted to go image. So I'd have to, I mean, that's just one bag. I had to take like 20 of these things up and down the stairs. That's like 40 trips up and down the stairs every time you want to image. And then financially, it made sense. I could have gotten a roll-off roof observatory at my club, but they keep that observatory if you change your mind. So you don't get to keep it if you want to move out of state or something. And it's a good price compared to more expensive domes. So I think it's a good value. And like I said, you could just throw this thing in a moving truck and move out of state or whatnot. You can't do that with a roll off roof. Really, you kind of have to leave that thing behind, right? So portability was a factor for me. And then in regards to the sky shed, I wanted the ability to shoot at zenith. I know you can't do that on the sky shed without an adapter, so that was a big one for me. Probably the biggest factor though was shooting in the wind, and it is windy every time I image out in Landers, California. Um, it gets up to about probably 15 miles per hour average, and it doesn't really die down till about 11 at night. So after about 20 nights of hauling my gear out and setting up and just the getting defeated by the wind, I bit the bullet and bought an observatory. So going over planning and setup, a lot of this is probably not going to apply to you because I set mine up at a club. So if you're planning to set this up at home in a backyard or something, I'll briefly kind of walk you through how you can perhaps plan for that. You're going to want to go over to the Nexdome website, and this is how it looked when I bought my telescope, and it still looks like this as far as I know. The last time I checked, it's 2021 right now. Go up here to resources, and this will bring you to this resource page. A lot of beneficial resources on here. Go over to plans and drawings first, come over to base dimensions, and click in here. This will give you a kind of a layout of how big your radius is going to be with some bays. So what I did is I just went over to Photoshop, and I created a like 25 foot by 20 foot canvas in Photoshop, and then I used the circle tool and made a 125 inch diameter circle, and then I copied this Nexdome picture and I pasted that on top of the circle tool, and I used the transform tool to stretch this Nexdome picture to exactly the size of the 125 inch diameter circle I made in Photoshop. And then my pad at my club is 12 foot by 10 feet, and I made a 12 foot by 10 foot square in Photoshop and overlaid that on top of this Nexdome image, and you could see the dome fits inside. This circle is a recommended pad, like a circular pad, but my square pad fits this observatory with these bays here. So I was good to go at my club, which was awesome because I don't have too many choices for fitting an observatory on a concrete pad there. As you can see, that's pretty close. The corner comes right up to the edge of the cement. This is the edge of the concrete pad here. This is my horrible seal job, but this is the corner of the observatory right here. Next, you're going to want to go to your meter schematics, and this will basically show you everything you need to know about the schematics of the observatory. So your height, width, you'll have your door opening and your shutter area opening there. And this section you're going to want to pay attention to. This will show your offsets, and I did not offset my pier. There is a lot of debate on whether you should offset a German equatorial mount or not. And from what I have gathered, yes, you need to offset a German equatorial mount to the axis of the RA and deck, right? So that's right here. This would be the RA and deck axis of a fork mounted pier. I know Tolga started a thread on this on cloudy nights, and I have seen numerous other threads exhaust this issue back and forth. I had talked to Terry extensively, and Terry on the Astro Imaging channel, even after talking to him, I'm still left a little confused of whether he agrees, yes, you need to offset a German equatorial mount which I agree with too, but to the exact parameters they have listed here. At any rate, I did not offset my German equatorial mount, and I am fine. I'm shooting with an 11-inch Rasa as well. You could shoot with a 14, but the bigger scope you have, the more tight your adjustments are going to have to be. Your measurements are going to have to be really, really dead on if you're shooting with a 14-inch SCT. Here's a picture of where the RA and deck access aligned. So it says, per the specs on the Nexdome website, your RA and deck access need to be plumb with the dome top center. Well, here's your RA and deck access, right? And this picture is not plumb with the RA and deck access of the German equatorial mount. So I still think they got it wrong. I'm siding with Tolga on this one. I think they needed to put a fork mount here, and then this picture would have been right. But that's obviously a German equatorial mount. Moving along, going to your sample deck observatory here. This is not what I use, but this will give you a sample of what you kind of can anticipate building. This sample deck is for a bayless dome, right? I think you could fit one bay, but if you put more than 2 bays, you'll have to come up with some other dimensions. Here's the pad I built my dome off of. This was available at my club. I was on a waiting list for these specific pads that were built for observatories. There was only 5 of them made, and I got super lucky, and I was on a waiting list for quite a while. So I am really grateful for the opportunity to build this dome on this pad here. For me, it's just a simple task of measuring 43 inches from the center, tying a string to a rod, and drawing a circle around the middle of where I was going to place my pier. When planning for a pier, pretty straightforward. So you want to know your pier height, right? In order to get that pier height, you just measure the bottom of your pier plate to the middle axis of your basically your telescope, right? And just put the telescope in vertical position, measure to the middle part of your telescope to the bottom of the base plate. And you'll subtract that number from your wall height, which is 53 inches. So again, super straightforward equation. P equals A minus B, where P is your pier height, and you want that to be the wall height minus the distance from the OTA center to the base of your pier plate. You can shoot with a smaller pier, and it's actually recommended if you can't see the horizon, which most of us can, right? And there's light pollution on the horizon anyway. So if you're able to reduce the height of your pier, you could actually fit a bigger telescope in your dome. This comes in handy if you're shooting on a refractor, for instance. So smaller pier height equals larger scope capabilities. I ran across this pier, actually it was this pier at my club. This member had this pier that already had the layout, the bolt pattern layout of the concrete pad that I was going to be using. So again, got lucky on the pier as well. But if you want a pier at Nexdome, they have them available for you. And here as well, they have a layout of the bottom, how you establish that bolt pattern on your deck. If you just want the dome, that's available for you as well. You could get this circular adaptation here and build your own custom observatory around the specs of this adaptive circle, and then put a dome on top of that circle track. So after you've thought about putting your dome together, you got all that aligned and planned out. You can come up here to user manuals now, and I won't go over all this, but pretty much this is all you need to know here about putting everything together. So in regards to complications, the first thing I ran across was hardware. Uh, Hardware complications. I thought that I was missing hardware, and I actually drew a circle around this and sent it to Babak, the owner of Nexdome. He got back to me right away. He's like, "Nah, just check the other boxes. The hardware's in there. It's just not where you think it is." So I had plenty of hardware left over. Actually, when I was plenty of hardware left over. There's a lot of extra in there, so I'm sure you'll have the right hardware. Just you may need to look around. It's all there. The next complication I faced was track mounting. This is a big one. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to present, because at the time I could not find anything on this. I had to figure this out on my own. I have found some explanations online, but I think this will really help you if you're having a problem with the track. So I actually thought the track was too long, and I ended up cutting off this one piece here. Uh, it's not a tooth. What? It's a track tooth. I guess I'll call it, for lack of a better term, a track tooth. You have a gear tooth and your track tooth, right? I cut off one track tooth, and don't do that. The track will fit. You have to force it in there. You have to jam it in there. I'll show you how to do that. Whatever you do, do not modify the length of a track. I had to glue that back on. Thankfully, it works. It works perfect now, but yeah, don't do that. Before you even start, use double-sided 3M tape. I got Gorilla Tape rated for 15 pounds with my dome, and everyone on the forum said, no, use the 30 pound. They said, use this tape here. I ignored it. I thought, I'm going to do it right, and I'll do it better than everyone else. They were right. I was wrong. It was garbage. Throw the tape away if it's that Gorilla 15 or whatnot. This tape worked perfect the first time. No problems at all. Other tape, horrible. Horrible. So do yourself a favor. Save yourself a huge headache and just get this tape on Amazon. Order it right now. Go to Home Depot. Whatever you need to do. Get yourself some of that tape. You're also going to want to pick up some C-clamps too. These are 99 cents at like I always forget the name of the store. Anyways, cheap hardware store, 99 cents each. Get yourself 2 of them. You're going to need them. So the previous picture, this one, that was the start of the track. And then I ran the track around and ended up with the second C-clamp. And I'll show you how to do that here. So here's the dome rim, right? I'm going to show you how to put this track on. And here's your track, and you have this overlap here. There's nowhere to go. It doesn't fit. There's no way it's going to fit in there. Or so I thought. Here's your C-clamp. So you put that C-clamp on there first, and then you're going to run this track around and put your C-clamp on, your second C-clamp, and you'll have this overlap here. Okay, you'll have this like protrusion because it's too long. There's nowhere for this dome to go. There's nowhere for this track to go, right? And you just press this track. In this instance, it was from the right to left, and I just kind of pressed it along, and the little lump got smaller, and I eventually just jammed it in place, and it's stuck in there, and it's been fine. Some people recommend freezing your track to shrink it. That might work for you too, but just so you know, it's not going to fit perfectly without some sort of finagling. Like I said, freezing the track may work. Getting off track. the first thing you want to do is ensure your dome is round as possible. So even some of the guys I've talked to that are Nexdome experts, for lack of a better term, um, they said they're probably out of round. It's not perfect, so but you want to try to make it as perfect as possible. I have not had any issues tracking, only slewing. So while the dome has been tracking, it's been awesome every time. I love the dome tracking. Keeps the wind out of the equation, and I've been very satisfied so far. I've had this dome for a year now. Well, as I'm making this presentation, silicone lubricant may help prevent unwanted wheel traction, and I'll show you how I did that. Here is where the dome rides on the wheels, right? You have this little slot area in here, right? And it rides on these wheels here, which are very sticky, and they catch this plastic and they ride up, and then they start riding up on this rim right here, and then this track gets off. It elevates itself to the point where the gear tooth doesn't catch the track tooth, or the gear teeth don't catch the track teeth. And so you put lubricant in this little slot area here, and it prevents this wheel from getting too sticky, and it slips it back into place. Genius idea as far as I'm concerned. I got that at We Love Our Nexdome Observatories at Facebook. On Facebook, it's a group there ran by Ron Richards. Fantastic group. He does a great job. Ron's a good guy. He answers all your questions, and you can tell he's really into it. Shout out to Ron. Thanks, Ron. Mounting the motor was the next issue. This motor that comes with the dome is not even the right motor in the instructions, at least in my case. It's a good motor, does the job, but here's a picture of the motor in the instructions, and there's a picture of my motor, and the way you mount them is completely different. I had to figure it out on my own. It does not say anything about mounting this new motor. So, Babak's customer service is great. Love the company. He gets back to you. He's a great customer service, but needs updated little instructions, because some of the stuff you got to figure out on your own, and it's a pain in the neck. I took a wheel off. I don't know if you're supposed to do that. It helped me tremendously. Took a wheel off and solved a lot of my tracking problems where the track was getting off. There's too big of a gap at some areas, and the teeth wouldn't connect, and the track would get off. So I took this wheel off right here. It's supposed to be a wheel right here. I took that off, and that's where the mounter's supposed to be screwed into. You actually have to drill 2 holes down here, and then this is the only way it'll fit on that hole for the wheel right there. There's this connecting rod, and it kind of hangs off a little bit. You could see the gear is hanging off the track about halfway, and you could adjust it with this screw here, the height, but that's about as good as I can get it. And a lot of people, I think everyone has this problem, at least on the model I got. Poor design, in my opinion. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I think a lot of people are doing something wrong. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I think it's poor design, but it works. All right. Mounting the magnet. This little magnet, right? What the heck? You have this little magnet here, and this is what homes your dome. I had to make this little adjustment here because the magnet didn't even reach. It wasn't close enough to make a connection, for lack of a better term. So I made this little wood thing I found in the garage, cut that, and if you mount this little plastic thing anywhere else, it's not going to reach. Where are you going to mount it? Let me know in the comments if any of you guys had a better idea. I think a lot of people did this as far as I remember reading. this was an issue. And hopefully this will save you a headache. You just know you have to do this. It's the way it is. That's the gap right there that'll home your mount. That was big enough for me. Any farther would not work. Installing the tables. These tables are horrible. I have another friend with the Nexdome shooting right next to me, or imaging right next to me, and he didn't even put the tables in. He said they won't even fit. They're horribly designed. I have these huge gaps here, right? I had to go get these hardware at the hardware store. These pieces of hardware were not in the package. So yeah, this is the only hardware that wasn't in there. But I mean, they work, but another bad design in my opinion. Door opening and closing. Cheaply designed door. This graphite stuff works good, especially where I'm at. I got all this grime and sand in my handle and whatnot, so sprayed some of that in there. It helps you open that thing up a little bit better. The door gets sticky too. This little metal lever rides up against the plastic, and I put some lubricant spray behind it because it's too hard. You're like opening this doors, and the friction is insane to open this door. It's like really hard to open, so I had to put some of this silicone, just a touch behind here, helps it open up a lot easier. And last but not least, the shutter itself that they eventually upgraded because it was horrible. So my shutter rode on this plastic here, right? It just kind of worked by friction, or attempting to reduce the friction. Again, I had to spray some lubricant in there too because the thing was super hard to open. A lot of people had this problem opening it, even with the $1,000 shutter, automatic shutter they sold, which I'm glad they replaced this thing. This design was junk. So they have this new ball bearing shutter system now. I think it's still in beta, so be careful. You may want to consider waiting until they work out all the kinks in this one too. But I will say I have that friend I was talking about earlier with the Nexdome shooting right next to me, and he's had this for 5 years, and he broke a piece on the shutter, and Babak mailed him a shutter almost instantly. Great customer service, so I think you'll be satisfied with customer service. I'm not too worried about, like breaking anything, because Babak's a pretty solid guy so far. Dome operation. So you'll need Windows. You can shoot with SkyX on Mac. That's possible. They have a plugin for the SkyX. I don't have any familiarity with this software bits, so I know shooting on a Mac can be a little bit touchy. And then obviously you'll need ASCOM if you're planning to use this dome automatically with your scope. You can move it manually. I wouldn't recommend that. It'd be a huge pain in the neck, but you can do it. You'll come over here again to the resources pages, go down to your Nexdome Beaver controller, and you'll want to download this PDF here. Go in the PDF, scroll down to page 3 or whatnot. You'll come over here to your Nexdome Beaver installation links. Click on those, and once you download everything, you'll get this ASCOM device hub. First thing you want to do is come over to tools up here, and going back one page. So you're in this telescope folder up here. We call that icon, telescope icon, we'll call that. Then you're going to click on setup, okay? And this will bring you to where you could choose your telescope. Hit choose, and you'll have one option. At least I had one option. It was my mount. Click OK, you're done. Your telescope's connected. Easy. Setting up your dome. Again, now you're in the dome icon. Click tools. You're in setup. Come over here to this page now and click choose. Actually, sorry, got ahead of myself there. You're gonna want to put your offsets in first. So to find your offsets, get your iPhone, put on true magnetic north. Sorry, true north, not magnetic north. There's no such thing as true magnetic north. Use true north, okay? Mark your dome, the top and the walls. Mark the dome and the dome walls with little pieces of tape. North, south, east, and west. Okay, mark those for reference. Right there, little piece of tape. Then measure from those pieces of reference to the deck axis. Now remember, the deck axis is inside a GEQ mount. Your deck and RA axis, excuse me. It's inside. I just measure the top. It works for me. It's close enough. If you're shooting on a bigger telescope, you're going to need to be a little bit more precise, I'm sure, but this is good enough for me. So there's north to the middle, and I basically measured south as well, and then I measured my north distance for myself. Did the same thing for east and west. There's the west right there, and I measured the east as well, and then I subtracted the east from the west, and those are your offsets. Plug them in here in millimeters. Moving on to your scope position, the way you find that is height above floor to the middle of your scope, or the middle of your mount here, middle, the RA deck axis. And then minus that number from the height of the dome rim. Sorry, you're going to minus the height of the dome rim from this number you get here. If your number is positive, it means the mount intersection is above the rim. If it's negative, it means it's below the rim. Not really too big of a deal, but just so you know. The dome radius, 125. It gives that in the instructions, so no need to really measure that on your own. The updated manual says it's, I think, double that, like 2050, and that's not right. That's the dome diameter. So dome radius is 1025 millimeters. I assure you, that's it. The gem axis offset, this gem here, the way you get that number, pretty easy. Just measure the middle of your scope to the middle of your axis, the RA and deck axis. That's it. Then you can click on choose, click properties, and it'll bring you over to this setup software here. Make sure you know your COM port. You could check that by going into your device manager. If you're in Windows, I don't know how to do it on Mac. Windows, you go to your device manager, you start unplug your dome until it says what COM port. When your COM port disappears, you'll know, okay, when you plug it back in, it'll say what the COM port it is, and then plug that COM number into here. Your parameters for your dome, home and park. Basically, I have these set at the same thing. And the way you find those is open up your shutter. Well, the easiest way to do it is put your shutter in north where you want it to park. That's the easiest way to do it. So your magnet is aligned when your shutter is in north. Easy peasy, right? But if you're misaligned, If you're off by just a touch, or you want your shutter to be open in the west or east or wherever you want it when it's parked, you don't want it in north for whatever reason. You note your azimuth reading on the dome software at shutter true north. So you just start moving this software, right? Sorry, you start moving the dome and you note the numbers in the software, right? That software I just showed you. It'll update in real time. So note your azimuth reading on the dome shutter at true north. And then subtract that number from the azimuth reading after visually aligning magnet homing center. Easy. If the result's negative, add it to 360. That's it. You plug those numbers into here. And for me, and per the instructions, it's easiest if they're just both the same. You can tweak that and look in the instructions. I'm not going to explain that. But whatever number you put those into here. Mine is not 0. Mine is like 87.8 or some weird number. It's not 0, so don't put 0 in it. But it can be 0. It can be 0 if you want true north. Because that'll be your home azimuth, 0. Going back to some of the settings in the dome, right? So you'll press go to home here every time you want to image, and that'll calibrate your mount for you. Sorry, it'll calibrate the dome for you. So it'll spin the dome until the magnet aligns with the bottom magnet, and it'll know exactly where the azimuth is at. And then you click slave to telescope here, and this little things here, this little contraption here is pretty cool. If you're off for whatever reason, I was when I was first messing around with this dome. I'm not anymore, but you can adjust the slider, its azimuth, and it'll kind of give you some leeway as far as how tight your measurements need to be. It'll offset your dome for you a little bit, and it could be just the touch you needed to not have to deal with a major headache. That's basically my presentation. I put kind of some of the stuff into the end for some filler time on the channel, but some of the tools I keep in the dome. Actually, this one's really good advice. This vacuum here, at least for me, I get really dusty in the desert, so this little tiny vacuum was perfect. See, there's the dust on the bottom, dust on my computer area. I keep a little duster in the dome to dust off my scope and mount every time I image. I have some extra tape in the dome, toolbox. You're going to want a wrench set of various kinds. Definitely a tape measure of various kinds as well. Some good scissors. Get yourself some very good quality scissors. Will come in handy. Wire cutters, strippers. Keep a drill handy with some drill bits and boring bits. I use power poles, so I like to have those handy as well. Voltometer, micrometer, tie downs, or like Velcro, tie downs, for lack of a better term. I hate this tool because you're having a bad day when you have to use it, but definitely keep one of these handy. I hate using this thing because for me it's always like the bolt's stuck or something bad happened if I have to pull this thing out, but good to have. Thank you. Thanks for watching the presentation, you guys. I hope you got something out of it, and I think that's it. I think that is it, my friends. Hope you have a good day, and I don't know, maybe I'll see you out in the field or something. Ciao.